We can get you out of here in a very short minute.
We're now live, sir. I can pause it if you want.
Okay. No, let's go live. It's 3:00, right?
Yes, sir.
Public comment 10 minutes, you think? Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hi, Anne, my colleagues. Good afternoon. That is not Belem Lamas there. Marquise Harris Dawson is disguising himself. And Councilwoman Raman. Let me call this meeting to order. This is the Housing Committee of Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. I'm joined by my colleagues, Nithya Raman and by Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Lee have not yet joined us, but we have a quorum and we're prepared to go forward with this short but meaningful agenda.
Would you like me to call the roll, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gilbert Cedillo.
Present.
Councilmember Nithya Raman.
Here.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Present.
Councilmember Paul Krikorian. Councilmember John Lee. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I note that it appears we have a rather short agenda, so why don't we take 10 minutes of public comment?
Just for the record, Councilmember Paul Krikorian is now here.
Excellent. Let's proceed.
Would you like me to read the instruction, Mr. Chair, for the
Yes,
public?
please.
Members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 1-669-254-5252. Again, the number is 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-871-1866. Again, the meeting ID number is 160-871-1866, and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak.
Okay, we will start. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Caller,
Hello,
please.
I'd like to comment on agenda item 3.
Yes, you have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Lori Resnick, and I oversee the LA ADU Accelerator program at One Generation. This is a unique and innovative program that was specifically designed to house extremely low-income seniors while they wait for permanent housing. Our 32 tenants and over 100 older adults on our wait list do not have Section 8 vouchers and are currently on HUD wait lists. They are housing insecure, which is a tragic position for anyone to be in. They make daily choices between paying for rent or paying for medication or food. They're too stable to enter the coordinated entry system, yet their income is too low for them to qualify for affordable housing. The LA ADU program is a program that works, and it was intended to scale up and be used as a successful model for other cities. But due to recommended changes by the CAO's office, the program will no longer serve those it was designed to. I am strongly urging you to not make Section 8 a requirement of the LA ADU program and extend the term to 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the
Sure.
items you want to speak on.
Recommendation on
Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Ooh.
That
Okay.
is talking.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
Hi. I'll be commenting on agenda item number 3. My name is Jane Wilson. I'm doing my field work placement at One Generation for my master's in social work. One of my tasks is to bring bags of groceries to our ADU program clients. One of the women, who's in her late 70s, was one of the first educators back in the day who brought Head Start to communities in extreme need at the outset of this landmark program. A lovely older African American woman who's dedicated her entire life to education, and now she needs our help to live safely and securely in her twilight years. She's just one of the ADU program clients. They all have rich and compelling life stories. All are the fabric of Los Angeles and what makes this city great. Please do not throw away these beautiful older citizens who gave so much to the Los Angeles community. I'm strongly urging you not to make Section 8 a requirement for the LA ADU program and to continue it for 5 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on.
Hi, I'd like to speak on agenda item 3.
Yes, you have 1 minute.
All right, my name is Jenna House. I'm the president and CEO at One Generation. I'd like to share my concerns with the Housing Committee on the suggested changes for the LA ADU Accelerator program. The original program, which was set to serve as a 5-year pilot, involved the placement of older adults with local homeowners and their ADUs for up to 5 years as they transition to permanent housing. This program is targeted to support those low-income older adults who are not lucky enough to be selected for a Section 8 voucher. As recommended by the CAO's office, shortening the time frame to 3 years for existing tenants to obtain permanent housing is an extremely unreachable goal. In addition, narrowing the program to only those with a Section 8 voucher is a non-inclusive approach that eliminates most older adults facing housing insecurity. The LA ADU Accelerator model is an innovative, age-friendly, scalable approach using resources from our very own backyards. I ask the Housing Committee to reconsider these changes and allow the program to continue for 5 years while allowing those without a Section 8 voucher to be eligible. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on.
I would like to comment on agenda item number 3.
You
My
have
name
1
is
minute.
Alessandra Gonzalez. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 1 minute.
I'm one of the housing navigators here for the LA ADU program at One Generation. Through my time navigating HUD waitlists for extremely low-income seniors, there are many obstacles that seniors face, especially doing it alone. Most senior waitlists are either closed, waitlists range from 5 to 7 years after submitting an application, or applications are only found through an online portal, which is a barrier for most of our tenants who don't understand how to navigate the internet. 3 years just isn't enough time to place these tenants in safe permanent housing. I'm strongly urging you to not make Section 8 a requirement to the program and to continue funding for 5 years as opposed to 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on.
I would like to comment on agenda item number 3.
Okay, you have 1 minute now.
Council members, my name is Veronica Cortez, and I'm one of the housing navigators for the LA ADU Accelerator program. After working with my clients for over a year, I've seen the difficulties that extremely low-income seniors face in finding affordable housing. The LA ADU Accelerator program has been successful in preventing vulnerable seniors from being on the streets. By changing the program to only accepting those with Section 8 vouchers, it defeats the purpose of being accessible to those that otherwise are not eligible for other housing programs. I'm strongly urging you to not make Section 8 a requirement to the LA ADU Accelerator program and to continue funding for 5 years as opposed to 3. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Go ahead. Hello, yes.
May I speak?
Yes.
May I speak now?
Yes, what item did you want to speak on?
My name is Marcy Spearer, and I would like to comment on agenda item number 3. I'm 82 years old, and my sole income is Social Security. That's just over $1,700 per month. I have been a voting Angelina for over 60 years. My name has been on low-income housing wait lists for several years, and I do not have a Section 8 voucher. After 40 years of living in my current apartment, my landlords are selling the unit, forcing me to move. I placed my name on the LAADU Accelerator program wait list and was about to be housed when the program was halted due to recommended changes by the CAO's office. Due to this delay, as well as recommended changes to make this program a Section 8 voucher program, I am on the verge of being homeless. And I strongly urging you to not make Section 8 a requirement of the LAADU program.
Thank you. Thank you, caller. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Caller, please state your name and the items you want to speak on. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Badd, and I'd like to comment on agenda item number 3. I am the daughter of a senior who's been enrolled in this program. My father has worked hard his entire life to provide for his family, and now he needs help. His rent takes up over 2/3 of his income, and he often has to make choices between food and his medication. I try to help whenever I can, but I also live on a tight budget. And he cannot live with me due to overcrowded conditions. He has been on HUD waitlist for over 10 years, and our hope is that he will be able to be placed in the permanent housing in the next 5 years due to recommended changes by the CEO's office requiring him to have Section 8 voucher. He will no longer qualify for this program. And I'm strongly urging you to not make Section 8 a requirement of the LAADU program and continue funding for 5 years as opposed to 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Mr. Chair, that's all we have as speakers today.
Thank you. Can we go forward with item 1?
Mr. Chair, just for the record, Council Member John Lee has joined us. He's present.
Mr. Kokorian is also with us.
Yes, sir. So everyone's present.
Okay. Let's start with the good news. We have an appointment to the Affordable Housing Commission. The illustrious Ana Grande will be joining us. Can we hear from her?
Would you like me to read the item to the record, sir?
Yes, please.
Item number 1 is a mayor's report relative to the appointment of Ms. Ana Grande to the Affordable Housing Commission.
Ms. Grande, you want to tell us about yourself, your experiences with PICO, your heroic work around the DREAM Act, and then what you've been doing recently?
Well, good afternoon, Councilmember Cedillo and all community members. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself today and to be of service to you and all those who you serve. As stated, my name is Ana Grande, and I'm proudly the daughter of Salvadoran immigrants, a lifelong resident of the 13th Council District. My journey has been one of tremendous effort and resilience despite the social risk factors faced. At the age of 7, I was trained by the Pacific Institute of Community Organizing, also known as PICO, as one of its youngest volunteer organizers, and learned from an early age to listen in order to understand and to empower so we could grow. Involved in the solidarity and sanctuary movements of the 80s, informed my passion and path to build a better today for my community and my city. The first in my family to attend college, I received a bachelor's in political science and a few years later pursued and was awarded a Master's in Humanities with an emphasis in Political and Religious Studies from Mount St. Mary's University. Currently, I'm in the process of finishing my doctorate in interdisciplinary leadership from Creighton University. My academic endeavors have led me to work for the City of Los Angeles' Council District 14 and 7, Univision Music Group, the Los Angeles Archdiocese, Power Pack, the One Campaign, Clinica Romero, Mount St. Mary's University as an adjunct and assistant academic dean, and now at the P.F. Brizzi Foundation as its associate executive director. So you may ask, why say yes to this Affordable Housing Commission appointment? Well, in 1994, after the Northridge earthquake, my mother and I became homeless. We lost our home and some of our belongings. We slept in our car and bathed in fast food restaurant bathrooms. We survived because my parish, with the help of then Council Member Jackie Goldberg, and FEMA provided assistance for rapid rehousing. Witnessing the care and diligence that the city has provided for those impacted by COVID in the last 2 years reminded me that when ordinary citizens and its government come together, we can do so much more. So thank you for your time and attention.
Any questions from my colleagues? Comments? Ms. Rahman? Mr. Krikorian? Mr. Lee, Mr. Harris-Dawson. I could hardly think of a more prepared and outstanding candidate for this commission. Not only does she bring the intellectual wherewithal in terms of what the issues that will confront us in terms of policy, but the life experience and the leadership experience make her the perfect candidate for this position. I'm proud to have collaborated with her on the efforts to pass the California DREAM Act. And I applaud the mayor's appointment and look forward to her contributions and leadership on this commission. I ask that we move to approve the appointment.
Second.
Mr. Villanueva?
All right, sir. Councilmember Gil Cedillo?
Cedillo, aye.
Councilmember Nitya Raman?
Yes.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Paul Krikorian?
Aye.
Councilmember John Lee?
Aye.
The item is approved, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Villanueva.
Certainly, sir. Item number 2 is a CEO and LA Housing Department reports relative to the Regional Early Action Program, Sub-Regional Partnership Program, entering into contracts with proposers selected through requests for proposals for housing element implementation and fair housing programs.
Okay, can we ask both the LAHD and the CAO to provide comments?
Hello, Nancy Twamakwaboa here. Good afternoon, council members. I'm with the Los Angeles Housing Department. The Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program, also known as REAP, provides one-time funding to regional governments for efforts related to the 6th cycle Regional Housing Needs Allocation, also known as RHNA, such as our 2021 to 2029 housing element update and other long-range efforts aimed at accelerating the production of housing. Of the $47.5 million available to jurisdictions through a suballocation by the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, a little over $8 million was awarded to the city of Los Angeles last year. This was distributed between LHD and the Department of City Planning. Today, we are here requesting authorization to move forward on several items as it relates to the city's grant award. On November 15th, 2021, SCAG informed the city of a 5% boost to its total grant award to augment program administration and approved activities. LHD is requesting council's authority to accept $70,000 of the $402,921, which is the additional award to the city, which will increase the department's award amount to $1,113,500. Under a separate transmittal cover, the Department of City Planning will be requesting authorization to receive its share of the additional grant allocation. Pursuant to a June 17, 2021 transmittal under Council File Number 20-1637, approved on July 1st, 2021, LAHD issued 2 requests for proposals in August 2021 to solicit qualified firms to provide services related to the completion of 3 grant activities. So our second request is authorization to negotiate and execute 2 contracts with Eco Northwest to provide services under the REAP grant program contractor services for a term of 15 months, effective March 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. For a total compensation not to exceed $305,000 to complete 2 studies, one of which is the displacement risk analysis and interactive tool in the amount of $190,000. And the other study is the report and interactive mapping tool to analyze sites for affordable housing development in the revised amount of $115,000. We do want to note that of the additional $70,000 awarded to the department by SCAG, LAHD is requesting that $65,000 be applied to the proposed report and interactive mapping tool to analyze sites for affordable housing contract, which will be with Eco Northwest, which would increase their initial contract award amount from $50,000 to $115,000. LAHD prepared a revised draft contract with scope of work to reflect the amended compensation amount, which is attached to the CAO's report for the City Council and Mayor's consideration for adoption. LAHD intends for the remaining $5,000 of the city's additional award to be applied towards translation services for the REAP grant activities. Lastly, we are also requesting Council's authorization to negotiate and execute a 3rd contract with Mosaic Community Planning to provide the assessment of fair housing consultant services for a total compensation not to exceed $150,000. This will assist LHD in completing the update to the city's 2023 to 2028 assessment of fair housing plan. Please let me
Any
know.
Sorry, good afternoon, Councilmember Cedillo. Mary Orellana Farias with the Office of the CAO. I would just like to note that our office concurs with the recommendations of the department. Our report just includes the recommendations related to the additional grant funding and the revised compensation amount for the contract that Nancy previously described.
Okay. Any comment, Anne? Prepared for us to move forward. We have a motion to adopt the recommendations of the CAO report as amended or as clarified. So moved. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Krikorian, for the second. Can we call the roll, Mr. Villanueva?
Certainly, sir. Councilmember Gil Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Councilmember Nitya Raman.
Yes.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Paul Krikorian.
Aye.
Councilmember John Lee.
Aye.
The CAO report's approved, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is a CAO report relative to actions to implement the Los Angeles Accessory Dwelling Unit Accelerator program. This item is also referred to the Personnel Audits and Animal Welfare Committee.
Okay. This is can we hear from the CAO, the LAHD, in terms of what we've heard this afternoon and what the proposal is?
Sure. If it's okay with the Housing Department, I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, committee chair and members. Mary Orellana Farias with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. The item before you is the request to implement the proposed Los Angeles Accessory Dwelling Unit Accelerator program. The CAO report responds to Housing's transmitted dated November 16, 2021, requesting various actions regarding this program that was launched by the Mayor's Office Innovation Team after receiving a $1 million grant in 2019. The CAO report is proposing some revisions to the structure with the goal of limiting the city's ongoing liability and while also ensuring that the 25 tenant households currently served with the program maintain their housing. We received a lot of calls indicating that Section 8 is a requirement. We would just like to clarify that Section 8 is just one of the exit strategies that we're recommending that the housing department and the proposed contractor One Generation explore in order to transition the households currently enrolled in the program into either another rental assistance available in the city or permanent housing. And if the committee chair would and the committee would like, I could go into all the revised recommendations, or I could also just respond to any questions the committee may have.
Colleagues, you want to weigh in on questions, or you want to hear from Ms. Soul first?
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about the revisions to the program and why the CAO felt these revisions were necessary.
Excellent.
Sure. So the first big revision is revising the pilot term from 5 years to 3 years. Like previously mentioned, it is to limit the ongoing liability simply because the 5-year pilot program has the end goal of transitioning the tenant households to permanent housing so that they will stop receiving a rental subsidy from the city. But it's not clear whether those 20, even the 25 tenant households will be eligible to transition out. Callers did express concerns that the 3-year program, the 3-year term limits it, but it's not even clear if the 5-year program, if that transition is going to be possible within the 5 years. So our office is proposing the change in order to expedite that timeline, and we propose instructions to the department to explore, like I said, existing rental assistance resources in the city. So I'll go into some of those programs now. So the first one is that we are recommending that they work with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority so that they could try to take advantage of the emergency housing voucher program. The second instruction is that the housing department and the proposed contractor One Generation work with the housing authority of the city of Los Angeles to ensure future placements, if any, are with tenant-based rental assistance through a Section 8 tenant-based rental voucher. I think this is the recommendation that is a bit confusing. We're not saying that any of the existing tenant households need to have Section 8 in order to stay in the program. We're just saying that if council were to direct housing to continue to enroll new participants, then we recommend that they explore that program instead to receive the rental subsidy instead of using the city resources to provide that subsidy. And then in the event that they're not eligible for either of those programs, it's that we're instructing the department to develop a long-term housing plan for each household in order to potentially place them in an affordable housing unit within the 3-year pilot term. And then, one second, we also include a recommendation instructing the department to report back to City Council annually regarding the program outcomes, the status of the existing tenant households, and if there are any program savings, if the tenants are able to transition out of the program. In the event that the tenants aren't able to transition out within the 3-year pilot term, the city will have the responsibility to possibly still keep providing that rental subsidy. But this is just to, it's an attempt to limit that liability.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just add to a couple of things to
yes, Ms. Chavez, I'm anxious to hear from you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yolanda Chavez with the CAO's office. I guess I would say the goal of our recommended changes is one, to limit the liability to the city because, as you know, this is a rental assistance program. And the average cost per unit on these 25 units that are currently occupied is about $2,100 a month, plus the contract, to the provider, et cetera. And so the second goal is really to leverage any available resources that we currently have. And it's true to get, to the wait list for Section 8 takes years, but there's actually an available resource now, which is the emergency housing voucher, right, that was provided to HACLA through the ARP program from the federal government. And they received about 3,365 emergency housing vouchers that have to be placed very quickly. So they have to actually place 90% of them by September of this year and the remainder by next year. So that means they have to find over 3,300 available units that and people who qualify, and this includes people who were homeless, are at risk of homelessness, or are victims of human trafficking and domestic violence. And I may be forgetting another category, but one of the things we wanted to
Marriage covenants.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to do, what we try to do is to take advantage of the available resources. This program was created by the Mayor's Housing of Innovation with $1 million grant, and that's great. But this rental assistance is going to be needed for the ongoing. It may go beyond the 5 years, and we definitely don't want to put any of the current tenants at risk. But what we're saying is, let's see how many of them actually qualify for an emergency housing voucher, because then that allows them to lease in place, right? And finding a rental unit that would take Section 8 is actually one of the biggest challenges, right, in trying to place all of these vouchers. So this is what we're trying to do. We don't want to, again, not risk the housing of anybody currently housed, but we're also saying, if we want to further expand the program, there are plenty of seniors out there with a Section 8 voucher looking for a unit, right? And One Generation can help house these seniors that actually have a rent, that already have a Section 8 voucher, that did wait for years to get one, or have one of the specialized vouchers that includes, vouchers for people who are homeless that can be placed. But because of fair housing issues, HACLA cannot steer them to units, right? But One Generation can actually help those seniors be housed. So that was the goal in terms of our recommended changes. Again, to limit liability, to leverage our current resources, and being very clear that we do not want to risk, for anyone who doesn't qualify, the city will still have to continue to pay for the rental assistance. And if it goes beyond 3 years and people have not been able to be placed in other permanent units, then the city is going to have to continue to pay for that rental assistance as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in before I make my comments? Mr. Lee. You're on mute, sir, but
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Are we going to be able to hear from Ansul before we make our final comments regarding this issue?
Whatever your pleasure is.
Well, I just want to ask real quick and I apologize if I'm not saying the name right, Ms. Oriana Farias. You said that Section 8 was one of the options that we're looking at. I mean, in this report, it seems pretty clear that that's what we're looking at. Did you misspeak, or is that truly one of the options we're looking at?
The Section 8 program is one of the options to transition the existing tenants out of the ADU program. So
people who already are in the program?
That are currently in the program.
But for future people, 100%, this is recommending that it be Section 8 only.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That's where we're recommending that if the program's going to grow, that One Generation partner with HACLA because there are, again, plenty of seniors who have a voucher already but have to find a unit.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll save the rest of my comments till after the presentation's over.
And you want to help us feel better about this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the CAO's office. The Housing Department supports the recommendations of the CAO. I have to say, every time that Ms. Chavez or anybody says, and the city will be responsible for any, future years past 3 or 5 years, there's a little chill that goes down my spine. So the idea of renting to people who have a longer term voucher as a way of managing that risk is I think, a good idea. The callers today and the discussion that we've had earlier points to a huge hole in the housing safety net, such as it is, that we have. Unless you are a person experiencing homelessness at this point in time, it's really hard for you to get a Section 8 voucher. It's really hard for you to get any kind of rental assistance. It's hard for you to get placed in most of the housing that we are subsidizing. And a lot of what you're hearing from are people who are technically extremely low income. They qualify for, had under 30% of income, limits. But because we are so limited in the vouchers, this is why we were so hoping that, the Congress would approve the big increase in vouchers as part of either the Build Back Better or the HUD budget in the coming year. Until we see a big increase in vouchers, I don't see that situation of having to target our dollars and our resources to the problems of people experiencing homelessness is really going to change. I wish there were other solutions, but we've been looking at it since, for the last 18 months that I've been here with the mayor's office and talking to philanthropy, talking to other people out there. It's hard. There are a few things that people can get in line for and wait for, like 202 senior projects that don't require 202 vouchers or don't require that people be coming from homelessness, but those are really rare. Those are, scattered throughout the city and unusual. So I wish that we had the ability to serve those folks, but right now it's something that the city would be doing on its own without the support of the federal or state government.
Mr. Harris Dawson, you want to weigh in on this, or you want to hold?
I'll hold, waiting to hear more.
Okay, great. Mr. Krikorian, any comments on this? No. Okay.
I guess. I just. I'm sorry. I just have a kind of maybe a foundational question to some of this. We have a tremendous number of Section 8 voucher holders who can't find a place to live and who sit with that Section 8 voucher in their pocket until it expires. And they remain housing insecure or homeless while sitting on a Section 8 voucher. So this continues to be, despite our efforts to prohibit discrimination based on vouchers as a form of payment for rent, this continues to be an seemingly intractable problem in this city. So I guess what I'm wondering about, and I get the point that the callers were making, for the very reason that some people who have no vouchers are equally desperate for stable housing. So I guess I'm wondering, as we're looking at expanding this program, what are the current constraints on growth? In other words, do we have a long line of ADU owners who are ready to jump into this program? Because if so, then maybe we can think of ways to expand it to other opportunities, of other means of payment, I guess. But I understand, and maybe you can clarify this, but it seems like most of the owners of ADUs are, quite content to go and rent them out at market rate, or use them as short-term rentals, or do other things other than help people with, housing vouchers, or participate in city programs. So where do we stand with that? And if my assumption is correct, what do we need to do to get more participants in this program so that we can house more people?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I'll jump in on if that's okay. So yes, definitely. The idea would be to continue with those ADU owners that are in discussions with One Generation and interested in finding tenants to recommend that we add those units to the units that are available for Section 8 voucher holders. There are roughly, what I've heard is only a third of voucher holders are able to use them in any year, that there's, 2/3 that go unused because it's so hard to find, units with rents under the voucher limits, units where the landlords are willing to, undergo the slightly more cumbersome process that dealing with government always entails. So that would be the idea. It would be, reaching out. The difference is that right now those voucher holders are probably going to be people who are even more low income and have, a more need for support. One of the geniuses of this program is the support that's available from One Generation, which really would work, as a bridge between the ADU owners and the tenants to make sure that problems get resolved and that people are successful in their housing.
And I would add, that's why we definitely recommend that One Generation continue to run this program, because that connection is critical, right? Not only to identify the landlords, but also tenants, and be able to serve as assistants and mediator if anything comes up between the tenant and landlord. So that is definitely recommended.
Ms. Rahman, you worked at the CAO's office before you joined us. Can you help us here?
I just had one. I had one question, which so reading the report and listening to what you're saying right now, I'm still having a little bit of trouble identifying the challenge that callers were having from One Generation about the ongoing program. I'm sure you've discussed with One Generation already about those challenges. Can you tell us a little bit more about what their concerns are? I know it's not totally fair to put that on you, but I'm just not able to piece it together from the comments that I heard and from what you're telling me right now.
Sure. So, I guess I would start and I would ask Anne to weigh in, but I think their concerns are the same concerns the mayor's office of innovation had when we first discussed the recommended changes we wanted to make. Was that the way it works now? Anyone who qualifies in terms of income, they can find it, try to find a unit for them, but that means the city has to pay for that rental assistance, right? And it's ongoing rental assistance, right? Because in our experience, and Anne has more experience in this on this issue, is that once if someone needs rental assistance, it's especially a senior citizen, it is very unlikely they're not going to need it, right? Their income is probably not going to change, for the remainder of their lifetime. And so it becomes a really, it would be a very large liability for the city if we just decided to say, okay, you could run the program as you have, given that you got this $1 million from Bloomberg, right? But now it's the city's either general fund or grant money that has to pay for this rental assistance, and it's an ongoing liability, right? And so that I think is their concern, that we are changing the program and saying, but we're also saying the 25 tenants or households which are currently housed, if they don't qualify for an emergency housing voucher, we are going to have to continue to pay that subsidy for as long as we need to. And so these changes may not limit our liability, right? Because LASA, as the lead on the emergency housing vouchers in coordination with HACLA, will have to determine if the tenants who were formerly homeless qualify for a voucher, and if the unit qualifies for the voucher as well, right? Because unlike this program, the HACLA and the federal government have certain requirements for each unit. So the unit and the tenant have to qualify for both. So if only 2 of these 24 households or qualify, then that's great, but we'll have to continue to pay for the rental subsidy for the remainder or the remaining households until they can transition to a more permanent or affordable unit. So I think that's their concern, right? And that to grow the program, we're recommended that we do it with tenants that already have a voucher, with senior citizens that already have a voucher and are out there trying to find a unit.
And do you have a
So-
sense One Generation will want to participate if the rules of the program are changed? I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
So our understanding,
Sure.
and Ann can confirm, that the housing department was speaking to One Generation. We did not hear otherwise. So we are assuming that if recommendations are approved, the contract will be adjusted.
Can I suggest, I see Mr. Harris Dawson, but I want to back into this. I was concerned, obviously we heard from people that we're working with that they have great concerns. And I am not for us taking any action that displaces anybody in a vulnerable situation. So, if we can have some commitments, right, and maybe we're not prepared to move on this yet because there seems to be either a communication problem or we're not structuring this right, but we have to, I think it's incumbent upon us. We took this grant, we started this program. It's incumbent on us to make sure that there's no displacement and that the concerns of these 25 households are such that they are confident as we go forward. And I want to use them as the baseline for how we go forward as opposed to all of us here on the screen. And so that's where I want us to be. And can I ask Mr. Harris Dawson to go before you? He's been waiting patiently.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. I have a set of questions, but they're general and impractical in nature. And I don't know that they'll be useful to move the program forward, but it just seems to me that the trouble I'm having with this conversation is it assumes that the deficit is with the tenant and not with the housing market. And that if you help the tenant, somehow it's going to resolve the problem with the housing market. If the government is giving away free money and people can't find anybody to take it, that's a problem with the market. That's not a problem with renters or even, frankly, the government, actually, because the government's actually extending the resource to individuals. And can you explain to me, because the way I don't understand this well. We haven't studied it. We just got a deluge of calls in the last couple of days from housing providers and tenants in South LA. This sounds like it punishes someone because they haven't applied for a government program that's widely known to be ineffective.
So I guess I would say, council member, that, and I guess this also responds to the chairman's question. What the report definitely says is that, the city's made a commitment, right, through the mayor's office of innovation to these 25 tenants. All we're saying is there a possibility to leverage some existing resources like the emergency housing vouchers? If there is, that's great, because then the tenant can lease in place. They have the unit, they qualify. But if they don't qualify, we still have that commitment to these 25 households. So I don't think we're trying to punish tenants, and we're saying, and it may have to go beyond the 3 years, because if the program framework is that the goal is to transition people to a more permanent, affordable housing setting where we don't have to provide a rental subsidy, right? It may not happen within the 3 years, right? It may be longer. It may not happen within the 5. It may be longer. And so that's why we said, the housing department can report, on a regular basis to see what the status is, and because they may need more funding to be able to continue the rental subsidy. So we definitely do not want to punish tenants. What we're saying is, let's see, are we able to leverage some of the existing resources? Because you're right, even though the Section 8 program is extremely challenging, we actually, HACLA and LASA have over 3,000 emergency housing vouchers they're trying to place before the deadlines, right? Or we lose them. HUD will just sweep any remaining voucher and give them to jurisdictions that actually, like you say, don't have the challenge with the housing market and can find units in place.
Mr. Chair, could I add to that?
Yes, please.
I think what you've heard from, at least today, and probably if you've been getting calls this week, are a different group of tenants than the 25 households that are currently housed. You've heard from people who were hoping to use this program, who've been responding to the outreach of One Generation and the mayor's office, and we're hoping to be, added to the list. The recommendation to use Section 8 probably closes off most of them because whether they had applied or not, they'd probably be, on the wait list and not able to come up soon. So you're hearing from people who had hoped to have a different, easier path that would fit them, and we're telling them, get in line. There's a year's worth of a wait list. That's not to say there aren't people. What Ms. Chavez has been describing is there's people on the wait list who could be served with this program, or rather people who have gotten to the point where they're now being handed the voucher. They have to go find the unit. It's often hard. Councilmember Harris Dawson is spot on in terms of his assessment. But you find, a lot of the people that are doing this program, a lot of the ADU owners are actually motivated by wanting to, participate in this program. So they might, with the partnership with One Generation, they might be open to taking a Section 8 tenant and entering into that 3-way contract with the housing authority and the tenant. So that's our hope. But it is a shift. And so it's saying to all the other people who hadn't gotten to the point of signing a contract yet, we're sorry, we're taking it a different direction. And to your idea about let's hold this, for those 25 households, rent comes due March 1st. And in this budget request is the money to address that issue. So we're hoping to make that thing possible today and in council soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Again, not useful for this conversation, but I'm hopelessly biased on this issue. And, in honor of the chair, I want to just strike a small critique of free market capitalism in the housing market. When I was a very young person, I had the responsibility of recruiting Section 8 voucher holders for apartment owners. And it was hard work, because there was much more housing than there were people with vouchers. And now we're in a situation where we have, it's just unbelievable to me that we have thousands of people walking around with essentially money that can't find a place to live. So with that, I'll end my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lee, you want to mute yourself just as I have just done?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. It's been said, so many seniors, like so many people in the city, they fall through the cracks, right? They make too much for Section 8. They can't afford market rate. When this program began, it was set for 5 years. And now we're trying to move it to 3 years. And now we're trying to move it to Section 8 housing when we've already not only made commitments to people, but we have people waiting in line expecting that this is their next step and that they are not Section 8 housing people. So, and also we've gotten a lot of households, like Councilman Harris Dawson just said, that want to be a part of this program because organizations like One Generation are involved because it involves seniors. These same households probably, you know, may not be open to taking just luck of draw any Section 8 housing out there. They're a part of this program, and we have like broken down through barriers trying to make them understand that they can be part of the solution, and also by helping seniors that otherwise could possibly become homeless. You know, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ann and Yolanda, we've received 5.68 from SB2 for this. And so that would cover some of the funding, but we're requiring homeowners to now be qualified Section 8 providers. Do you know why there's not a lot of Section 8 out there? Is that it's not an easy program to start up and be a part of. And now we're asking homeowners that they have to be official Section 8 housing providers in order to take Section 8 vouchers. Colleagues, the bottom line for me is, and I get frustrated with a lot of different programs here in the city, this is a program that's actually working. We're getting seniors housed and finding people to open up their homes to alleviate the thought that we're all trying to do, that somehow just because people are homeless or on the verge of homeless, that somehow they are, you know, scary people. This program is working, and I just don't understand. We made a commitment for 5 years. We have people lined up. Section 8 is, like we said, like Councilman Harris Dawson said, and I agree with him, a lot of people don't join it because they know they're going to have to wait in this incredibly long line. A lot of these people, they don't have that time to wait. And so I'm hoping that, you know, we can not only move this motion forward, because as Ms. Sewell says, we have people waiting March 1st. You know, this funding's, unless we approve this today, if I understand correctly, no more funding goes out and those people lose their housing. We not only have to pass this today, but I would like to, you know, introduce a motion stating that we do increase this back to 5 years and that we remove the Section 8 housing out of it, because I just, again, this is a program that is working. It's working to help seniors get housing who otherwise might be falling into the cracks. And so I urge everyone here to, you know, understand that this program is something that we made a commitment to, and it's something that I'm hoping that we continue moving forward on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I may respond, council member, so.
No, Yolanda, Ms. Chavez, please hold.
Oh, sure.
Let me be clear about Mr. Lee's motion. So Mr. Lee's motion is to move from 3 years to move it to 5, and then to move it from a mandate for Section 8 to an option for Section 8, for which then we must manage ourselves. So we're not mandating or placing a burden on the renters or the seniors. We're not putting the burden on them. We are alleviating that burden from them and allowing the CAO's office to present that as an option where it's appropriate. Is that your motion, Mr. Lee? Is that one that then will ensure that rent is paid on the first and there's zero displacement, and that there is a comfort for those residents that have called in? Ms. Rahman, does that seem to capture that? Ms. Rahman, is that
I'd love a second.
I'll second that if we can accomplish that. Ms. Rahman, I'm interested in your, is this?
So the only thing I want to say is I think that what I heard from Yolanda and from Ann earlier is that the safety of these 25 participants in the program is not threatened by the recommendations that are currently in the report. That there is no plan to, if they don't, while they're encouraged to find Section 8 or emergency housing vouchers, that they will not be kicked out of the program and that will continue taking on the liability for their rental payments whether or not they're able to find that, but the recommendations are encouraging them to look for that. Is that correct? Oh, Yolanda, you're on
Sorry.
mute.
And it's actually, they don't even have to look for it. We would ask One Generation to connect them with the housing navigators at LASA who are getting people to apply for emergency housing vouchers so they could determine if they're eligible. So the burden is not on them. And yes, that is correct.
So, Mr. Lee, I think your concern for those residents is absolutely warranted. It's scary to be in that, but I do, my understanding, my read on this was that it's not being threatened by.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. What is threatening are the people that we have already lined up, the 100 people, 100 seniors who are now waiting for this type of housing that One Generation has already lined up to take a part of this program. And now we're now pulling the rug from them.
And how many people is it actually 100 people that One Generation is committed to the program that are?
No, let me be clear. There are no commitments. There's people who are interested in participating, and I believe that there were like another 9 folks. So, $2,100 a month times 12 months times 5 years, we have $5 million. That, it's not 100 more households. It was, I believe, 9 that were in the queue. When we started realizing that this was a cliff that we did not want to take the city over, we asked One Generation and the mayor's office to stop, trying to match people, at least, 60 days ago. So I believe there's 9.
That's just not correct.
Okay, so somewhere between 9 and 100. So Harris Dawson.
Okay, that's my limited knowledge, and you could very well be correct. I checked the org chart. You are correct, council member, but let me find out, what the real number is.
Okay. So, Mr. Lee wants, and I think all of us want, to make sure that these tenants that called in are alleviated of their stress. So this sounds like a great program, right? The great surgery, the patient died, but the surgery was perfect. It sounds like some of the other things that we do that are perfect and award-winning, and yet don't produce any results. My bias. So this sounds like something that's like a great program with an absolute communications problem and disaster, because we have people calling us who are actually operating this program and telling us that they're in fear of the program ending and the fear of their tenants being displaced. That is a problem that has to be addressed and resolved. I don't know why that is the case, but it is the case. And so I'm happy to move this, but I want it to be stated very, very clearly that there's going to be zero displacement and that no one is going to be burdened with some requirement to become Section 8, or that their lack or failure to be on Section 8 will move them out of their current residence.
That's not exactly my motion. It's moving forward. No Section 8 be required.
Yeah, and I'll extend a second to Mr. Lee because it's my understanding, and please disabuse me of this understanding if it's not correct, that there are people who have the expectation of having being eligible for the future of this project that are now being told, we're changing the rules, you're not going to be eligible going forward. And if I understand it correctly, that's what's happening, and that's what people are taking issue with.
And I apologize, Ms. Sewell. You're right. We have 9 ADUs lined up, but we have 100 people waiting who have been vetted for this program. So we're both right.
Always
You're
a happy
both right. I see hands up. Mr. Krikorian, I see your hand up. Or would you like to make it clear as mud for us?
No, just a couple of observations, I guess. Again, to my earlier point, we have 9 units lined up for over 100 applicants, which tells me...
Sounds like my district.
Yeah, well, I mean, it tells, right. tells me we have, again, a problem in attracting housing providers to become a part of the program that allows us to expend the housing money that's available to us through vouchers and otherwise. So whatever we do with this program is not solving that problem one way or the other, it sounds like. But I would like us to get to a point where we can expand this program to be able to accommodate some of those additional folks. And that's the missing piece here. But my observation is a more pragmatic one for the moment, which is I'm concerned that we're trying to, debate the structure of this program when we have apparently a deadline for extension of the program that comes 6 days from now. And I, for the life of me, I don't understand why it is that we're in a committee hearing less than a week before that deadline, trying to figure out how we should move forward. And this seems to be a recurring challenge that we have when we issue RFPs, proceed with programs, and then it comes before the policymakers, and we're expected to spitball something at the very, very last minute. So I don't know if there's because to the chair's point, I mean, it would make sense for us to, take some time to figure this out, but then we're told, well, we have no time. So
if I can clarify,
yeah, please.
Just on the time frame.
Yeah.
Because March 1st, of course, rent is due. The mayor's office did ask the foundation to cover an additional month. So what you see in the recommendations in the report is to actually reimburse the Bloomberg Foundation for the first 3 months of this calendar year for that rent. So the cities, so that the housing department will have time to execute the new contract and issue the check for the April 1st rents. So at least our fiscal or our financial responsibility on the rents will start April 1st, right? But I think in terms of timing, it's still important that you move quickly on this report, unfortunately, because the housing department will need time to execute the contract and then issue the check for the April 1st rents. I did want to just raise one more issue, that one of the reasons that we wanted to make these recommendations and to try to leverage the emergency housing vouchers for the current tenants without any displacement. And that was a major commitment that was, that is really clear in the report, because we cannot displace any of these seniors, was because I think you're aware that we also have to find about $250 million for the gap for the next Home Key 3 round. And so there are a lot of policy decisions that you have to make. I mean, some of these units may be units that some of these seniors can move into, right, once we acquire these Home Key properties. But we have just a lot of liabilities that we have to be able to meet. And just identifying the gap for the next round of Home Key to acquire 700 more units. Because I think you're aware the housing department has already submitted applications for 868 units. It's going to be a massive undertaking for us to identify that money, and rental assistance is ongoing liability, and it's just going to continue to grow.
Okay, that's interesting. I have hands up. I don't know if anybody has not had the opportunity to speak. Ms. Rahman, your hand is up. Mr. Corrin, you just spoke. Ms. Rahman, your hand is up.
I just wondered whether we might be able to sever the two questions so that we can consider them both within the timeframes available to us. So one would be to accept the recommendations about the 25 existing tenants in a timely fashion so that the program is able to go on, and then come back to the question of the 100 applicants, the 9 ADUs available, and the program design suggested going forward in a future meeting with a little bit more information.
Is that a second, Mr. Lee? You've got a cat smile there.
Absolutely second.
Okay, so we have a new motion that bifurcates this, ensures that we are fiscally responsible and making sure that we bring some peace to the tenants. And then gives us a little bit more time to evaluate the proposals and see how we can match this up. And Ms. Rahman, I thank you for thinking about it that way so that we can move forward.
Thank you.
Everybody clear? Okay. We have a motion and a second, Mr. Villanueva.
Certainly, sir. So just to be clear, the committee would like to approve the CAO report, and the committee would like to a report back from the CAO and Housing Department on the second part of what Councilmember Rahman mentioned, the 100. I just want to make sure that it's clear for the public when we write the committee report.
Yeah, let me take a stab at it. I think we want to approve in part in terms of the fiscal commitments, and then we want to get report backs with an opportunity to evaluate and think about the policy aspects of the program going forward.
Got it.
Is that right, Ms. Rahman?
Yes, that's right. So I think we'd be approving the first recommendation.
It's the recommendation that's authorizes LAHD to execute the contract. That's what my staff tells me.
So if we maybe we could go through the recommendations just to make, if you're good with that. So you would be approving recommendation 1, 2A, I believe, and then recommendation 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is the position and also all the financial recommendations.
I don't think that's it.
No? Okay.
Yeah. Ms. Rahman, why don't you state what it is we're trying to accomplish and let that be the.
I'm sorry.
No, it's I'm clear, and I think Mr. Lee's clear. So that's 3 votes. I don't want us to lose this as we try to cramp this into some other language.
Well,
Mr. Chair and Ms. Rahman, if I could comment on the contract request, the current compensation amount is enough to cover the 25 existing tenant households for the term of 3 years. So I think so the committee may want, I don't know, approve. Since 1 does describe the framework described in this report, that one may be part of the report back, but I think the committee may be comfortable approving recommendations 4, which includes the contract, the transfer to Bloomberg Philanthropies, and then number 5 is the new position, and then number 6 is the controller instructions to appropriate the funding so it's available for the April rents. And 7 and 8 are requests regarding the SB2 funding and also the annually reporting back. So that one may wait for the next report back.
Is that more ambitious than what you had in mind, Ms. Rahman?
no, the numbers that she identified in the recommendations are only those related to the current contract and funding needs, right? Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. And then everything related to the framework would come back to this committee for discussion.
And just to confirm, it also included the new position for the department.
So is it 2A, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? That's what the committee is approving.
The committee could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's recommendations 4 through 6 of the CAO report.
Okay.
There you go. Is that, Ms. Rahman, is that where we're at?
4 and 6 are fine. 5, yeah, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And 5 is necessary for the ongoing maintenance of the program. Is that correct?
Correct. The department is requesting the new authority to oversee the program.
Councilmember Lee, I don't know, sorry, I didn't.
Doesn't 4A cover the 3 and 5 years? Can we leave that 4A? Am I right, Miss?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
4A, doesn't that cover the 3 and 5 years? Thing that
This covers the 3 years, but it has the funding available to cover the 25 existing households for the 3-year term.
Can we
So
just
if
take out that piece?
I don't recommend taking it out because we need the contractor to be able to disperse the payments on April. The committee could choose to increase the funding as part of the report back if that's the direction we're going.
Or we could add another additional 2 years during the next discussion.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, you got that, 4, 5, and 6?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Villanueva?
Yes, sir. So would you like me to call the vote, sir?
Yes, so let's be clear, we are moving 4, 5, and 6. And then we will report back with the other items to the committee. Okay? Yes, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gil Cedillo,
Cedillo, aye.
Councilmember Nitya Raman,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Paul Krikorian,
Aye.
Councilmember John Lee.
Aye.
The item is approved as amended, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for us this afternoon. A great collaborative effort and making sure that our seniors who were distressed can now be certain that they will have the housing they deserve. Is there anything else on the agenda, Mr. Villanueva?
The desk is clear, sir.
Clear. A motion to adjourn is in order. Mr. Harris Dawson, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. More consensus. Meeting is adjourned. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here always.